right now. So the whole controversy. So John Paul II had in his catechism, which was a bit different from what tradition always said, is that the death penalty should only be used under serious circumstances. Now, if we look at the whole tradition of the church, Augustine, St. Thomas, all the great theologians, the death penalty is seen as a good and just thing in certain circumstances. It's even promoted because in some cases it's helpful. They give all these reasons. It's one for it helps the sinner. So one of the arguments they gave is that let's say you're a notorious sinner and you're given the death penalty, you know the hour of your death. Like when people in the Catholic countries were executed, there were priests that escorted them all the way up to make sure they could ensure their salvation. Just until not that long ago, the Vatican had their own executioner because their Vatican is a nation. Now, as you're moving under, I think it was Pope John Paul II. I don't know exactly when they got rid of them. I mean, I think it's more of a formality because I don't think they've been using executions in a long time because of their size. But the whole question needs to be asked: is the death penalty something that a city-state can legitimately implement? That's a question. And we look in the Old Testament, we clearly see it not just being promoted, but God demands for these sins. You read the book of Numbers, he does all these horrible things. And he gives Leviticus, all these things that death penalty should be implemented for. One was, doing bad things with animals and various stuff. And it makes sense because he's trying to help keep society clean, keep people out. And John Paul II's stance was that, well, it should only be used when you can't lock people up. Now, right after this, Pope Benedict comes out, he was Cardinal Ratzinger at the time, with the statement. He was head of the CDF, which is a part of the magisterium that issues documents on what we are to believe as Catholics and kind of just addressing modern issues. He says, he asked the question, did John Paul II change the church's doctrine? He said, no. That obviously that can't be done. We're Catholics. The church has to always be the same. But with some things, what you can change is prudential understanding of the doctrine. So though the death penalty may be used, when is the best way to use it? And John Paul II is simply encouraging people in his prudential judgment. It'd be best if people only be locked up unless the death penalty had to be used. Again, in terms of prudence, this isn't something we have to believe. The person who's head of the state has authority and ability to determine when is a good and prudent time, within reason, to use the death penalty. But he is encouraging this is the more prudential and helpful stance. Now, there's been theologians who have academically and properly argued against John Paul II, which is permitted because the very idea of prudence is that there's not always exactly one answer. What is prudential in one country might not be prudential in another country. For example, where my girlfriend is, everyone kisses everyone. That's how you greet someone. That's how you say hi. It's weird here, but that's what they do. But if you did that here, it'd be imprudent and weird to do that, So the whole idea of prudence, it changes within culture, it changes within people. A big thing like in Japan, they don't have a lot of the problems with like graffiti and stuff because there's this whole cultural thing about honor and you don't want to be dishonorable. It's a terrible thing. So the way they implement their laws and everything is going to be different prudentially because they have different circumstances. Same thing is true with the death penalty. Now, the word Pope Francis uses inadmissible. He says the death penalty is inadmissible. What does that mean? There's been so much argument and debate over exactly what this means. But if we go off of John Paul II and to the traditional teaching, we have this consistent theory that the death penalty may be used, but it has to be used prudently. Any questions about that? Sorry, it's a lot. It's caused a lot of controversy because you have to hold the teaching that's always been taught and handed down. You can't contradict that. So you can't say the death penalty is not permitted anymore because the church has clearly declared that it is. But
what does inadmissible mean then?
That's a good question, and that's where the big question. That's where a lot of people go, what does that mean? Then I think it's in the Latin. What is the word exactly being used? Mm-hmm. I don't know. There's people who have. There's been so many like ink spilled over this little thing. Yeah. So now the Catechism is not an infallible document. So in theory, the Pope could make a mistake in the Catechism. I don't want to like spread bad things about the Pope. I'm just saying this is a controversial issue. So it's something to consider. One, maybe just like for the way the new catechism of Pope Francis's edition has been published, it's caused a lot of controversy.